Does LSU firing Brian Kelly mean anything for the Florida Gators pursuing Lane Kiffin?
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And LSU yesterday fired Brian Kelly, which was a complete miserable failure on their part to hire Brian Kelly. I don't know why they thought it would work out. Let me introduce myself. I am Brandon Olsen, the host of Locked On Gators, lifelong Florida Gators fan, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Find all my written work about the Florida Gators with swampsignal.substack.com. And I will say that, I have no idea why LSU thought that Brian Kelly would be the hire to get them a national championship. He never did it at Notre Dame when he had generally easy schedule after easy schedule, and would oftentimes just need to win a couple of tough games every year. Never did it. Never did that. I will also say, if anybody has names, I see you, Joshua. We'll get to that. If anybody has names that they want to throw into the chat, go ahead and throw them and we'll talk. We'll probably go today for about 40-ish minutes. Duval T, I'm not talking about going for Brian Kelly. Don't worry about that one. I don't know why LSU thought that Brian Kelly would be a good move. It wasn't even using foresight prior to. It wasn't a good move. He couldn't win at Notre Dame when he had easy schedule, had to win a couple tough games. He wasn't going to come to the SEC, dominate, and win a national championship here. Went 10-4 his first year, went 10-3 his second year, went 9-4 last year, and was 5-3 before getting fired here. And now that opens the door for the conversation of, does LSU firing Brian Kelly impact the Florida Gators coaching search at all? And of course, the most obvious thing there is Lane Kiffin, right? And I think that most Florida Gators fans know that Lane is an SEC proven guy. He's fun offense. Every big school is going to want him. Everybody wants Lane Kiffin at this point, right? Sure. Does that mean, though, that he's going to be pursued by LSU? I don't think so, honestly. The reports came out yesterday that, so Brian Kelly got fired at about, 9 p.m. On Sunday, maybe a little bit earlier than that. But those reports came out, and with those reports also came out other reports, because a lot of reports going on, that LSU was not looking for the big name, right? That LSU was not looking for the big name hire, that they were not looking for that again. They were going to go, a quieter name, which I do think is a smart idea. I do. First off, a lot of teams go, to hell with Georgia. A lot of teams go, okay, well, we went the big hire last time. It didn't work. It was small with a small hire this time. I don't know if that's so much the approach that LSU is taking right now. I think LSU is looking at this like, okay, we need someone that fits. We went for a guy that I think that's the approach. We went for a guy that doesn't fit LSU, that doesn't fit Louisiana. Now we need to go for someone that does fit. And so the first name that I think of automatically is John Summerall. John Summerall in state at Tulane right now, very successful so far. He's a more even keel coach, brings everybody down in a good way, like brings down the energy a little bit in a way that's deserved. So I do think that there's that with John Summerall. I've also heard, I'll say murmurs, that Kenny Dillingham might be a name that they pursue. Again, similar to when we talk about him for Florida. I know that there are maybe jobs that could get him out of there, that can get him out of Arizona State. I don't know if LSU is one of them. I think that for him, it matters a lot. And also, I will say this. I don't know how much Kenny Dillingham necessarily works outside of Arizona State. I do think that Kane's 5-0. That's cool. It's not what I heard, so we'll see what happens. But I mean, I get it. If you want to talk yourself into that, go ahead. But I don't know how much Kenny Dillingham works outside of Arizona State, because part of his big appeal is the Arizona State alum. That's his alma mater. That's the passion that you see from him. Like, you can't fake that. And you're not going to have that for other schools. And so I do think that matters. So I don't think that it really impacts him right now. Kane's 5-0, by the way, I forgot if I even read it, but said, I live in Louisiana. LSU is not going after Summerall. They're going for Kiffin all the way. Nobody I've spoken to believes that. Nobody. Like I know that there's a lot of people that go, oh, well, you got to go for the biggest name. No one I've spoken to believes that. Like, they're not big game hunting at this point. Okay. Like, and I know fans are going to feel differently. Here's the thing. Fans, myself included, like, we don't know what the administration's going to do with any school. We could say what we want. We could say who we want, but that doesn't mean the administration gives a damn. It doesn't. So I do think that when you talk about who LSU's going for, I don't think it matters much for Florida's search. Let's have Harrison. Wild times, fun. Stafford said, is Marcus Freeman an LSU option? I don't think so. I think Marcus Freeman is only leaving Notre Dame for Ohio State. That would be my guess. I don't think that that's a thing that he's looking to do with LSU. He turned down LSU to be their DC when Brian Kelly went. I could see him turning down LSU to be their head coach after firing Brian Kelly. I don't think Brian Kelly is, or I don't think Marcus Freeman's leaving. I think he's all about whenever Ohio State opens, I'm going to go there. And until then, I'm going to have fun at Notre Dame, win a lot of football games, look really good, and boost my resume a bit with a weaker schedule, all that stuff. Okay, Kane's 5-0. I really could not care less that the governor got involved, so that means they're going after Kiffin. Okay. As far as the other names in the chat that I've seen so far, I'm going to go back to, I forgot who was it, Joshua that said that? Okay, let's also talk about this. Charles Todd Sullivan said, people saying LSU is a better job than UF. UF is better financially, overall athletic success, more potential for long-term success, etc. UF still has a sleeping giant potential and LSU does not. Here's the thing. I don't care about is LSU a better job or is Florida a better job? They are both top 5 jobs in the country at any time that they open up. Right? I think most people can agree with that. Top 5 jobs in the country at any time. It's them. It's Ohio State. It's Texas. They're top 5 jobs every single time they open. LSU, you get like when we talk about recruiting, Florida, yeah, top kids will leave. There's a plethora of talent in the state, though. LSU, not as much talent, but the talent doesn't leave that much. So I look at those and I go, all right, they kind of offset, for being honest. The way that I view it, at least. Overall athletic success, I don't think a football coach cares about, like, oh, okay, well, as long as the overall athletic success matters. I don't think they care about that. I think they care about their part. Better financially depends on the metric, I would assume. I think they're both top tier jobs. I think that Florida, you could probably get away with a little bit more struggle than in LSU. I mean, look, LSU, I don't think Brian Kelly was a good fit at LSU at all, but he had 10 wins, 9 wins, and still had 5 wins right now and got fired. Like that. I don't think at Florida, you're not getting fired if you go 10, 9. You're not getting fired here. That's not what they're going to, like, Scott Strickland's not going to do that. This administration is not going to do that. So if we're talking about job security, you're probably safer at Florida than you are anywhere else. So I think that's where I look at when we compare the jobs of who's better, who's not. And also I think it's very important to say it matters on the individual. Like, every coaching job matters in the individual. We had Dave Waters from Gators Breakdown here this morning. And when we spoke about the jobs, it's like, look, like, it doesn't matter if Florida or LSU are better. It matters if they're better for that coach. It matters if it's better for Lane Kiffin. It matters if it's better for Coach B, whoever. Like, it matters for that coach specifically. You might say Florida's a better job because you have more in-state talent. You have more job security. You're still going to get significant investment. Like all that, you could say all that, and you'd be absolutely right if that's what you're looking for, right? If you're looking for no state income tax, if you're looking for whatever the hell it may be, sure, you might be right. But it doesn't matter what you think about the job or what I think about the job. It matters about what that coach thinks about the job. And so that's very important there. Joshua said, if we miss out on Lane, how do you feel about Kalani Sitake? For those who don't know, Kalani Sitake is the BYU head coach. I am going to say veto on that one. I think he's a great coach, but I think he's a great BYU coach. I don't view him as someone that I say, yeah, this guy's going to come to Gainesville and win a ton of games and be really productive and fit with the culture and all that. Like, I don't see that with him. I do think that he has a unique situation right now where at BYU, like they've done a fantastic job of building that program and finding like the Polynesian pipeline. And I think that's where, because BYU always has great Polynesian talent. I think having Kalani Sitake there does help them there. They invest a ton in NIL, and also job security wise. I feel like Kalani Sitake is pretty safe at BYU. On top of that, again, one, I don't know how much of a fit he is. Two, I don't really want a defensive minded head coach. I don't, unless it's Marcus Freeman or select few. I don't really want a defensive minded head coach. And Kalani Sitake was a DC prior to this. He was at Utah and then Oregon State. So I don't really want him. Just to be completely honest, we'll talk more about names in the chat. We'll get more to the chat when we get back with this episode of Locked On Gators. College football is back for the Florida Gators with an interim head coach, and it feels good again, right? Like tailgates, the rivalries. We got Georgia week, to hell with Georgia. Energy in the stands. There's nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself, with endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I like to use Game Time whenever I'm buying tickets for anything. The app that gives the advantages back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. So what you see is what you pay. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. And the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So even if you miss the start of a game, or you want to ride the hot hand, which is usually how I prefer to go about it, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks to how many points someone will score in the fourth quarter. SGA is usually pretty safe there. Plus, you can even combine your bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Let's go Knicks. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Jump to the bottom of the chat here. A bunch of talk there. But I will say Brian Kelly didn't get fired simply for his record. He was not engaged. It was clear he wasn't all in. Sure. He was going to get fired for his record regardless. Like he wasn't a good fit when they hired him, but also if you don't recognize that, you're an idiot. I don't get that part of it, because if you don't recognize, hey, this guy not a good fit, and you go and hire him, that's entirely on you. Anybody on the planet could have told you, hey, Brian Kelly not a fit for Louisiana. Anybody could have told you that. LSU insiders saying they want a young, energetic guy. Makes me wonder if that means a coordinator. Maybe a Will Stein. Maybe. I really I don't think that it's going to be Lane Kiffin. From who I've spoken to so far, I haven't heard anybody that genuinely thinks Lane Kiffin's the target. Maybe he's on the list somewhere, and they go, hey, we want this, but from who I've spoken to, Lane Kiffin, not option number one for LSU. And we'll see if that changes, but to this point, it doesn't seem likely. Lane denying that he said he's staying in that clip of him yelling at the OU fans is interesting. I don't think he said that. I didn't think when watching the video that he was like, oh, I'm staying or I'm not leaving or whatever the hell he said. Like, I didn't think that what he said. Here's the thing. I also just want to get this out of here because we're going to talk about Lane. We're going to talk about other candidates, but I think it is so important to acknowledge this. I don't care what anyone tells you. I don't care what any Ole Miss insider tells you. I don't care what any Ole Miss fan tells you. I don't care what any Ole Miss media member tells you. I don't care what Stephen Willis of Locked On Ole Miss tells you. Until Lane signs that extension, there's a decent chance he leaves. Because if he truly wanted to stay and truly intended on staying, he could sign that extension right now and eliminate the distraction that this coaching search is. Like make that, let's get that abundantly clear. Let's get that out there. The Florida job being open is a distraction for Ole Miss right now. We've heard about it. He had to, Lane Kiffin usually likes to ignore these things, right? He had to acknowledge it. All that. He could have just signed the extension. That they're giving him a lot of money. They're giving him everything he wants, right? He could have signed the extension and ended it. He hasn't. To me, that means a lot. It does. To me, that's telling me, hey, if I wanted to just put this to bed, if I wanted to end this distraction, if I want everybody to know, hey, I'm staying here, we're going to keep winning, all you got to do is sign your name. He hasn't done that. That's all that matters. He hasn't done that. And to me, that tells me still a pretty decent chance, right? This is very open. Candles Don't Lie, which, by the way, great name, said, how long did we sit and wait for Lane to decide? You're going to wait weeks. It's as simple as that. Weeks at the minimum. Like, buckle up. It's going to be a long ride. And we're all going to be probably on Lane watch every single week. That just is what it is. When you are trying to hire a elite coach or a elite coaching candidate, sometimes you got to sit and wait while they do their thing at their last spot, and you wait patiently and then do it. Simple as that. So I will say that, like, I don't care what anyone says about, oh, well, the scuttlebutt here in Louisiana. I don't give a damn. I don't care. It took 30 seconds for us to have Billy Napier fired. Lane Kiffin's on top of the board. That came out right away. Why hasn't it come out yet for LSU? Is it because they're trying to do things quietly? You don't do things quietly with a Lane Kiffin like that. It doesn't stay quiet. So that's how I'm looking at things. At least, again, me. Like that's how I see things. I do think that for LSU, that's a very unique state. That's a very unique environment. That's a very unique atmosphere. I do think that there's nothing more important than saying, we need to get a guy that fits. Everybody can say whatever they want about Coach O, right? Ed Orgeron. Anyone can say whatever they want about him as a head coach. But you can say also that he won a national championship, and you could say that he worked not because he's this amazing head coach, but because that man fit. Like, that man fit the culture of LSU. Ed Orgeron was a perfect culture fit for LSU. I mean, he was Louisiana to the bone. No one's surprised about that, right? Like, he fit perfectly. One thing's for sure, mob boss Pig Jimmy is going to squeeze everyone. That's the thing. Like, Jimmy Sexton's probably going to get whatever the hell he wants from whoever wants to hire Lane, right? Lane's going to probably be the highest paid head coach in college football history after this year, wherever that is. If that's Ole Miss, he's probably going to be at Ole Miss. If that's Florida, he's probably going to be that at Florida. If that's hypothetically LSU, he's probably going to be that at LSU. He's going to be the highest paid coach wherever he wants. We're on Lane watch. That's it. Would it be announced before the college football playoff? Maybe. I think that depends on if his team's playing in the college football playoff, which they might not be, right? Like, I know that we can look at them and say, all right, well, they don't have a very difficult schedule coming out. They've got the Citadel, which you never know, right? An option team could pop you at any time. but they've got the Citadel. They've got Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl to end the season. They've got Florida in 3 weeks. They got South Carolina this week. Anything could happen. Like, I don't like going, oh, well, they beat Oklahoma, so they're in the college football playoff. Is that how football works? Is that it? You win for your first 8 games, you go 7-1, and then you're just in? Is that it? You get a tough loss or an ugly loss, could knock you out there. It could. I'm not saying it's going to, but it could. Right? Like we saw Billy Napier ended Ole Miss's season last year, ended their playoff hopes last year. And I'll tell you this right now. I think that when they play on November 15th, I'm going to pick Florida to win probably. Why wouldn't I, right? Why wouldn't I say, because last year my thought process was, well, Florida, or last year was, well, everybody wants Billy Napier fired to hire Lane Kiffin. Of course, Billy's going to beat Lane Kiffin. That's college football. Sometimes the story matters more than the game. I'm going to pick Florida to beat Ole Miss now because sometimes the story matters more than the game. And sometimes you're going to get the story of, well, Florida is going to play so well they can eliminate Ole Miss from playoff contention and then get their coach. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that's going to be the prediction I'm going to make probably because hell yeah, let's ride the wave, right? Like, let's do that. But I do think that when we talk about Lane and this potential, like, you do have to say, like, look, South Carolina, not a good football team, right? Not a good football team. But they give everyone fits. They do. They give everyone fits. They make things ugly and messy, and that's what they do consistently. That's what they're probably going to do in this Ole Miss game, make things ugly and messy. And we'll see, right? Now, anything could happen. I'm not saying, oh, yeah, they're in because they beat Oklahoma. That means they're not going to have the upset. Why would I assume that? That's ridiculous. Looking through some of the names, and also I did want to talk about a name that now is brought up a bit. Lincoln Riley, right? And I bring this up also because Zach Fink said which UF targets could potentially be interested in LSU. I think Lincoln Riley is a name that's going to be tied to both schools. And I will say this, I am not a Lincoln Riley guy. I am really, really not a Lincoln Riley guy. I'm not. I don't like the way that he is all offense and cannot figure out defense. That's very frustrating. Just talking about Lincoln being a candidate honestly annoys me. But I do think he's a name that is going to be brought up. I think he's a name that probably will be brought up. I mean, considered taking the LSU job, or not even considered. There were reports that he was going to take the LSU job before the USC job opened up, or before he got the USC job. There were reports there. He wins football games, right? Maybe. Like, yeah, he wins games, but when you think about it, he had the Big 12 to start the season, or to start his head coaching career, won a lot of football games there. He did do that. Very consistently gets good quarterback play, very consistently gets productive receivers, all that. And very consistently is, well, he's just a defensive way. That's it. That's all he is. He's just a defensive way. And that honestly irritates me. It does. It irritates me to talk about Lincoln Riley as a potential. Because, and like Josh was saying, you can't ignore that Lincoln's a QB whisperer. He's an offensive guru. All he would need to do is hire a solid DC. Has he been able to do that yet? Like, Lincoln Riley's been a head coach in college football for 9 years, and not a single year has he had a consistently reliable defense. This year, they're 56th in the country defensively. Last year, 57th. The year prior, 121st. The year prior, 94th. And that's his USC tenure. Never had a top 50 defense at USC. Never. At Oklahoma, 60th his final year, 29th in 2020, the COVID year, 64th the year prior, 101st the year prior, 68th the year prior. Lincoln Riley has never been able to figure out defense. Not in the Big 12, not in the Big 10. The SEC is a conference that is not defense optional. When Lincoln Riley was the king of the Big 12, it was defense optional. It was. No one played defense in that conference back then. Like everyone talked about, high-flying offenses. Like, yeah, because the defenses sucked. That's it. The defenses sucked. Why? All the good players went to the Big 10 or the SEC. That's why it was. That's why all the good defenders went to the Big 10 or the SEC. No one in the Big 12 is playing defense like that. Lincoln Riley, okay, you had great offenses in an era of the Big 12 when no one played defense. Now it's different, right? They're starting to play more defense. But then you go to USC. And the thought is, okay, well, we'll have California athletes. Quarterbacks always come from California. Receivers always come from California. You have a closer Polynesian pipeline. You have good edge defenders, good DBs in California. Like you have all those things, right? We'll be able to figure it out. And look, they've invested more in defense. They have. They went and hired, or Lincoln fired Alex Grinch finally, which, by the way, the fact that he kept Alex Grinch on staff for so long is an indictment of Lincoln Riley's ability as a head coach. Hired D'Anton Lynn from UCLA. And what happened? Still can't field a good defense. Is it perhaps that his offensive style, as fun and high-flying as it is, wears on a defense? Is it possible? Yeah, it is. Like, I'm not sold on Lincoln Riley. And also, he has not been able to build a team where I can look at him and I say, okay, like they can go up against an SEC team, punch him in the mouth consistently, and fight back, or a good SEC team. That's it. Like, I can't think of a Lincoln Riley team where I go, all right, they can go into the SEC and compete. And I know he hasn't been in the SEC, right? He hasn't been in the SEC, but what he has done is be a head coach for 9 years and never be able to field the team where I look at it and I go, that can go toe-to-toe in the SEC. And that matters to me, right? Because yes, you will have more resources, but the areas where you screw, similar to James Franklin, right? Like I don't like James Franklin as a coaching candidate. I really don't. He's screwed up the QB evals, and development. He's screwed up the wide receiver evals and development. He's screwed up the OC hire. Those are things that it doesn't matter if you're in the SEC. If you're screwing up those things, I can't trust you to do that here. If you're screwing up the QB evals and development, the wide receiver evals and development, Duval T said Franklin can't win big games. I don't even care about that. I do think you'll be able to get more talent in Florida, but will you be able to evaluate that talent and actually get them? I don't know. You had to beat Michigan and Ohio State consistently, and you couldn't do that. Can you do that in the SEC where every week there's a gauntlet? You don't get a Northwestern. You don't get Northwestern. You don't get Purdue. Those cupcakes in conference don't exist in the SEC right now. They don't. Kentucky is liable to give you some fights. Mississippi State is taking every game to the wire. They're losing a lot of them, but they're taking every game to the wire. You don't get that. Okay? Nope. Lincoln Riley at USC has a bigger budget, deeper pockets than probably a lot. Probably a lot of schools in the Big Ten, I would imagine. Maybe more than anybody except like an Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, maybe. But outside of that, like he lost to Illinois, lost to Notre Dame. Congratulations on beating Michigan. That was this year. Last year, lost to Michigan, lost to Minnesota, unranked, lost to Penn State, lost to Maryland, unranked, lost to Washington, unranked, lost to Notre Dame. The year prior at USC, lost to Notre Dame, lost to Utah, lost to Washington, lost to Oregon, lost to UCLA, unranked. The year prior, lost to Utah, lost to Tulane. That's it. Like Lincoln, he doesn't move me as a coach at all. He really doesn't. I think that you've got really deep pockets right now and you're still not winning enough. You've got really deep pockets and you're still not addressing the things that have plagued you your entire career. I do think that, if Lane Kiffin doesn't work out for whatever reason, Lincoln Riley will probably slip into the conversation. But man, I won't be thrilled about it. I'll tell you that. I think he's a name with a ton of pomp and no substance, really. I do harp on coaches that have these things that follow them throughout their careers and don't address it, right? Like look, Lane Kiffin, head coach for a while throughout his entire career, and it took him a long time to shift, right? Like it took him a long time to make the move and say, I need to get more serious about defense. Went and hired Pete Golding, which I don't care what your opinion is of Pete Golding. I don't care what anybody's opinion is of Pete Golding. I think that there were a bunch of people that spoke about Pete Golding's time at Alabama, where Alabama fans didn't like him for whatever reason. And let me just make this abundantly clear. A fan base not liking a DC does not mean DC's bad. Okay, I just want to make that abundantly clear. You talk to a lot of fans and you say, why is he bad? And they're going to bring up something that doesn't necessarily fall in the DC. Or they're going to say, mobile quarterbacks give them an issue. Name, like you can speak to any fan base in college football and go, do mobile quarterbacks give them an issue? And they're going to say yes. Because mobile quarterbacks are incredibly difficult to defend. Every fan base goes, we're good defensively, but mobile quarterbacks give us an issue. Everyone says it because they're tough to defend. Like Pete Golding's a good DC. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care how talented your defense is. You don't have the number 2 scoring defense in the country last year without a really talented defense, without a really talented defensive coordinator. You don't. Like Pete Golding's good at his job. So to me, Lane Kiffin hiring him, that was a big boy move. And that was genuinely the moment where I go, all right, Lane's taking this more seriously. I'm going to take him more serious. I used to be very anti-Lane. Now, good with it, happy with it, want him. Lincoln hasn't made that move yet. Hiring D'Anton Lynn kind of felt like one, but even then, hasn't been needle moving yet. They haven't been able to consistently build the defense. Again, 56th in the country right now. And like the teams that they've played, not amazing, right? They gave up 31 points to Michigan State, which, by the way, Michigan State, not a good team, right? They're averaging 26 a game. You gave up 31, which outside of Boston College, that's the most they've scored against an FBS team this year. So interesting to note that. Michigan State scored less against Western Michigan than they did against USC. Like this isn't a great USC team. And so I'm good. Look at the level you want him to come in. It's national title or bust first year. I can see y'all now. I don't know who you're talking to think that I'm going to have those expectations, but no, those are my expectations. I will also say that I will wait for a coach to come in and for roster retention to come in and to see the results and what I'm going to say about my opinion of where they should go. But there's not a single coach, I think, that's going to get hired and I go, okay, national championship or bust. If it's Lane, I'll say college football playoff needs to happen. Yeah. I'll tell you right now, if Lane Kiffin comes in, I expect most of the roster to be retained, and my opinion will be college football playoff. That'll be my expectation for year one. Because also next year, schedule seems pretty favorable on paper right now. Obviously, transportal coaching changes, a lot of that happened in the SEC, which isn't surprising. Last year was the first year, I think, ever where the SEC didn't have a single coaching change, or the first year in like 30 years where the SEC didn't have a single coaching change. felt like, okay, well, there were a few guys who were on the fence. Last year, there wasn't any. Someone's going to screw that up. Okay. So I think that when we talk about that, that's where I land on what, expectations and the coaching. Just like, I don't think there's any coaching jobs that are going to open up that are truly going to impact Florida. Unless I will say if Alabama were to open up, which I don't think it does, but hypothetically, if Alabama were to open up, I do think that would be a job where Lane might actually say, all right, I'd rather that. I'm not saying that he would. I'm just saying that would be an expectation or a possibility. So I'll say that. I said, I saw someone mention Mike Bobo on Discord. Any chance? Or are we looking for someone with head coach experience? Personally, I want someone that's been a head coach before. I want someone that's been a head coach for a while, if that's possible. If not, then it is really like Brent Key's been a head coach for 4 years. Not exactly a great sample size for sustainability and longevity, but he's done a good job in those 4 years. But I don't want a coordinator. I spoke about this morning with Dave Waters. I'm against a coordinator because I don't want a head coach that's going to call plays. And so if we're hiring a coordinator to be the head coach, he's either going to call plays while being a head coach. And I think that's generally going to fail for a lot of coaches. Or he's going to give up play calling duties, which is his thing that he's supposed to be good at, and take on a leadership role in which he's never had. So I think if you're going to go a coordinator, it needs to be an offensive mind. I'll say that because then again, like I've mentioned this 1,000 times before when we talk about OC or DC, if you get the coordinator route, which again, I will say, I think Florida is more likely to go G5 route than coordinator route, which I think is a good decision. If you're going to go coordinator, you have to go OC because you want a guy that is going to come in and Duval T. I need you to tell me who you're asking about. Then Joshua, no, it's not. If we hire a coordinator who's never had head coaching experience, it's going to be a Billy Napier situation all over again. No, because Billy was a head coach for 4 years. What's up, JLB? Yes, I am Locked On Gators. But you have to hire an offensive coordinator over a defensive coordinator because every defensive coordinator that goes to head coach, you'll probably have a pretty good defense, right? But it's always going to be if you get the OC hire right. Because a bad offense with an elite defense doesn't win enough football games. If you have an offensive-minded head coach, you can, first off, a lot easier to replace a DC than an OC. It is. There's so much that you can do defensively. So a lot easier to replace a DC than an OC. You will always have that offensive mind there, that offensive system there, even if your OC leaves. Because if you're a defensive coordinator going to head coach and you nail the OC hire, you're going to have that OC for like 2 years. And then he's going to get a head coaching job somewhere else. And so then you're going to have to make that hire again and nail that hire again. So you want to have an offensive-minded head coach so that he's the system. You can worry about DCs. You can siphon those or cycle them out, whatever it is. But a great offense with a bad defense wins a hell of a lot more games than a great defense with a bad offense. That's just football. Like, I wish it were the other way around. I really do, because I'm a big fan of defense, but that's what football is, right? Like, do you remember the Will Muschamp days where it's like every time we go, oh my God, this defense is the greatest thing we've seen in a long time. And then it doesn't work because you can't score points. You're averaging, 13 points per game or whatever the hell it is. Like, you don't want to be in that situation. Are there any great OCs that can make the jump to UF as a head coach? I hope not. If I'm swinging on an OC, I'm swinging on a guy like Will Stein. I'm swinging on a guy like Will Stein. If I'm swinging on an OC, there's guys like Buster Faulkner. I'm a big fan of as an OC, but like, I don't want him to be a head coach. There's not many names that are coordinators that I would like. Brian Hartline is one, but that's like, he's an OC not because he's known for his scheme, but because he's known for recruiting and developing receivers, and he's got a great reputation as a coach. So like that, but even then, I feel like that then negates you want to have the head coach be the offensive system. That's kind of negated at that point. And so, yeah, there's not many coordinators I'd want. Again, I'd rather go the G5 route than a coordinator route. I think Florida would be more likely to go a G5 route than a coordinator route. I would hope so. I know a lot of people go, oh, not G5. That's Billy Napier. I don't care. Urban Meyer was a G5 coach before he came here. Like there's a ton of G5 coaches that would work out in the Power 4 level. There's a ton that won't, but there's a ton that will, right? And I think that has a much higher success rate than a coordinator in modern football. Don Comas said, what about Kenny Dillingham? I don't think he leaves Arizona State is where I'm at. I think there are a couple of jobs that can entice him. I don't think Florida's one of them. I think he's only going to a place where he has ties to and wants to be at. And so I don't think that Florida is one of those, which is fine. Again, like I honestly, I love him at Arizona State. I think that for Kenny Dillingham, being at Arizona State, being at his alma mater, like it's a huge selling point for him. Again, like I mentioned it earlier in the show, he'll like cry after big wins. He's super passionate about the team, about the program. Let him stay there. I think that really works for him, really goes well for him. And so that's where I'm at on Kenny Dillingham. Jeremy said unpopular opinion, but if not Kiffin, get Riley. If you weren't here, we spoke about Lincoln Riley about 15 minutes ago-ish, something like that. Looking at the rest of the chat here. Do you think he'd keep the staff or hire his own guys if he landed at UF? Lincoln Riley, I think he'd keep maybe a couple guys. I'd be fine with Jabbar Jalouk, although I don't know, if that's going to happen. I would hope Gerald Chapman stays as defensive line coach. Should still be under contract too, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't know. There are a lot of coaches on this staff that I do like. I like Jonathan DeCoster, the assistant offensive line coach. I like Jabbar Jalouk. I like Gerald Chapman. I like Robert Bala so far. But also, I do think that the relationship between assistant coaches and head coaches is very important to find success. And being able to work together is very important to find success. And so, it's not only about, are you a good coach? Are you a good recruiter? It's can you work well with this head coach? And I think that matters. So if that's what's got to happen for, like, if guys got to go for a coaching staff to gel and work, then guys got to go for a coaching staff to gel and work. And that just is what it is, honestly. It's nothing against anybody. It's just, I don't want a head coach to come in here and go, okay, I got to have these guys that I don't know and I'm not comfortable with and think that that's going to work. I feel like that's risky and negates going for a big name head coaching hire. So maybe if you hire an OC like a Will Stein, you go, all right, well, we're going to keep a bunch of the defensive staff. You can hire your offensive guys, but you don't really have that much of, or that big of a assistant coach recruiting pool defensively. So we're going to help you out there. We're going to have these guys. Maybe that's a big part of it, right? Who knows? Great offense can keep the other team's offense off the field. Absolutely. Why so much hype all of a sudden for Fish? He got embarrassed by a rebuilding Michigan team. Do people put that much weight on the Illinois win? I think that people just tie Jedd Fisch to Florida because he's won football games everywhere he's gone so far, and he's a Florida alum. That being said, my biggest thing with him is that he's never stayed at a spot to show me he can sustain success, and that matters a lot. Like Brent Key and Jedd Fisch have the same amount of Power 4 head coaching experience, right? But Brent Key's done all of his in one spot. Jedd Fisch has bounced around. I'd rather have the guy that's stayed at a program and built that program and is playing with strictly his players at this point. So that's where I stand on Jedd Fisch. I don't like that his big selling point is Florida alum. Nope. Don't like it. I don't think that should be your biggest selling point. I feel like it is for him when people bring him up. And so I don't like that. I prefer to have someone who's getting it mostly on merit. And if you're an alum, that's great. But I feel like with Jedd Fisch, most of the time people go, well, he's Florida alum, and think that makes it that he's going to work because he's going to care about the program. And I understand that. And I agree with that he's going to care about the program. But I don't know. I don't think that's that important. When you're not a great enough coach. Travis Washington, thank you for the super chat, super thanks, whatever you want to call it. But said, what about Chris Leak? I'm good. I am against hiring former players just to hire former players on staff. Sure. But yeah, I want a head coach that's proven. and I want someone that has a large assistant coaching pool. Yeah, because that does matter. That's one of the biggest things when you talk about a Will Stein that's an OC that doesn't have, or I guess he's got a longish coaching career so far. But like when we talk about guys that haven't been in high ranking positions for a long time, you got to look at who's beneath them, because those guys are going to get upgraded usually, right? An offensive coordinator could get hired and he's going to go, all right, my quarterback coach, I'm going to take with me to be my OC. And the assistant running backs coach, I'm going to take him with me to be my running back coach. And you'll see a lot of that happening, and that's fine. But when you have guys who've been coaching for long periods of time and they've been in higher ranking positions for long periods of time, they have more of a coaching pool, a broader coaching pool. And that's a big benefit for a guy, especially getting his first head coaching job. That matters a lot. And so I don't like guys that don't have that. And I think Chris Leak doesn't have that. I think that when people mention Tim Tebow don't have that, I'm good on that. Strickland saying he was going to make the hire was the booster saying, sure, you could say whatever you want today, but hopefully. What if the team and coaching staff make a run these last 5 games without Napier to hold them? How does that impact the head coaching search? I don't think it does. I don't think it impacts anything. Yeah, no, Travis, I get it. It's just a thought. Like we're in the time, and I've said this before. Like during this coaching hire on Locked On Gators, like you can mention any name you want, and we'll get into it. Except John Gruden. Don't mention John Gruden ever. But you can mention coaching names, and you can mention candidates that you want to throw out there, and if we end up liking them, we end up liking them. If we don't end up liking them, then we don't end up liking them. But I think that it's fine to throw names out there and just see what sticks. And so, yeah, I think that's totally fair to do. I don't mind that at all. I don't hate that. Just we're in a coaching search, right? Obviously, we all want Lane, or the overwhelming majority of us want Lane. But there's a lot of names that are going to be thrown out there. There's a lot of names that could be suggested, and the realistic possibility is that Lane chooses to stay at Ole Miss or chooses to go somewhere else. We're going to be prepared for that, right? So there's that. I don't, and what if they make a run? I don't think that matters, honestly. I don't want to keep Billy G as head coach, even if they go 5-0 here. Don't want it. I want a guy that I can trust to build a program, and I'm firmly against hiring the interim long-term. Have been firmly against it always, will continue to be firmly against it. I think it's very rare that it works and that you're putting yourself in a bad spot just because a guy got a hot stretch. A lot of the time they get the hot stretches, it's because you break tendencies and they don't have to film the study on you. And then you hire the interim as your full-time head coach, and then they have that film, and then you get boxed because you're not prepared. You don't have experienced enough as a head coach. And that happens a lot. I think it's more of a supplemental thing when people say that about fish. I know, but I think it's a fine supplemental point. But the fact that oftentimes when people mention him, they go, "Oh, well, he went to Florida, and so that's that. Like he shouldn't be in consideration because he went to Florida, and that's like the main selling point." I hate that idea, and I do feel like that's how a lot of people push it is to get the alum, get the former players. Get like when people mention Chris Leak, Tim Tebow, like I think it's valid to bring up a bunch of names and different names and just get off the wall stuff with it, but I don't like it. Joe Brady, I'm good. I don't want an NFL guy. I don't want an offensive coordinator because I don't want a coordinator at all. And I don't think Joe Brady likes college football. I think the only place he'd go is LSU. That's where I'm at. And also Joe Brady's going to get an NFL head coaching job at some point soon, right? Why would you take a college coaching job over that? Infinitely more stress. Like, let's just be real about that. What about Kerwin Bell? Kerwin Bell is interesting because you have, of course, the alma mater. He was very briefly on staff, head coach for longish time, right? Never at a high level, but head coach for a longish time. Fun offense, very pass happy, would get athletes involved often. But I struggle to look at someone that hasn't coached even like the G5 level and think that you're going to be able to do like FCS to Power 4 is a huge jump, right? And also, again, when you're a guy who like you're known for your high flying offense and all this, are you going to carry that over? Are you going to teach that over? What's that going to be? So Kerwin Bell would be way, way, way down the list. Okay. Wins a lot of football games as a head coach, but again, he's doing it at the FCS level. So I do think that matters a lot. I really do. What time frame do you think we may get a decision? What's up, Q? I think it depends on how Ole Miss finishes. I think right now a lot of people are looking at Ole Miss and it's kind of just like, hey, Lane, like it's up to you. And I think for a while it's going to be that. I don't think many people are going to shift off that, but I think that's what it's going to be. Who are your top choices after Lane? I've got a few. Like I've said, I think there's a lot of coaches that I'm open to and receptive to and that I don't hate. But I think Lane's the coach that would move me the most, you know. Marcus Freeman would have been up there as well. It's not happening. But like my tier 2 includes Kenny Dillingham, Brent Key's one, John Summerall is a name that I like, but again, wouldn't really move me. Don't totally want a defensive guy. What's Mike Elko's buyout? Not happening. Just get over it. Don't care what his buyout is. Not coming here. Yeah, there's Brett Lashley's one, but he's apparently been vetted by Florida and they weren't super interested. Jeff Brom from Louisville is big time winner, ton of fun, great offensive mind, but don't think he's going to leave Louisville, his alma mater where he found success and all that. So don't look at that. Bob Stoops with elite OC. Oh, please no. Lane loves being the belle of the ball. Sure. Maybe. I don't know. I think it's weird when it's like, sure, maybe Lane does love the attention, but like no head coach is accepting a job offer right now. What about John Summerall? Did I mention? I think I mentioned him. He's my Power 4 outlier. He's the one guy in the group of 5 that's in my tier 2 winners list, which is short-term, long-term winners. John Summerall, I like him. Dude's a winner, not a wow hire, but again, like a defensive mind, needs to get the OC hire right. But as I forgot who I was even just talking about. With Lane being the belle of the ball, like maybe, but yeah, no coach is taking a head coaching job right now. Like no head coach that's actively competing for a college football playoff spot is going to take a job. It's not going to happen. What you should be mad about is that certain people in the media leaked a potential contract offer being made. That's what sped up the fan base internal clock. Like that's what sped up the fan base timeline. I can tell you, other members of the media can tell you, other fans can tell you, you're not getting a legitimate answer. You're most likely not getting a legitimate answer for at least a month. That's just the truth. That's just what life is right now. But certain people want to be first rather than be right or rather than do the right thing. And so they put out reports and then now the whole fan base is like, well, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? You're not getting an answer whether or not that report came out. You weren't getting an answer until probably after the regular season at the earliest. That just is what it is. I don't know who other than Lane. I do know who not to hire. Any coach who's been fired this year and no coaches who haven't proven they can win big games. Sure. Just smacked the crap out of my laptop. Just ruined everything there. Yeah. John Summerall is one that I like. I don't see Jeff Brom leaving either. How long do we wait on a coach who may not even leave his current school? Probably end of the season. Coach Drinkwitz an OC. Yeah, I think Drinkwitz is an interesting one because he got the OC hire right? Like he's hired a play calling offensive coordinator one time. Josh, I don't know Mike Elko's buyout. I'm assuming it's a lot of money considering he's in year 2 at Texas A&M and considering Texas A&M has pretty good pay. But either way, he's not leaving for Florida, so that's it. But yeah, Coach Drink nailed his one play calling OC hire. But does that mean that he's going to nail the second one? I think that Hal Lewis, Florida booster, brought up the take with Eli Drinkwitz. Well, he was 17-19 as a play calling head coach, and then he gave up play calling and went 27-6. And so, are you getting 17-19? Or he said it more as you're getting 17-19 Drink, but I don't think that's true. I think it's up to landing the other offensive coordinator. Clinton Yates said, what's Drink's record versus top 10? I don't know, and I don't care. I hate this, and I'm gonna go off on a little tangent here. I'll keep it as brief as I can. I hate this whole, like, what's his record versus top 10? That doesn't matter if you're not a top 10 team. Like, Drink's record versus top 10 teams doesn't matter because Drink's never had a top 10 roster. Lane's record versus top 10 teams doesn't matter because Lane's maybe had a top 10 roster one time, and it was last year. Like, if you're talking about guys who don't have top 10 records or top 10 rosters, I don't care what they do against top 10 teams. Like, I don't care. Like, if we're talking about basically anybody outside of the top 10, it doesn't matter what your record is against top 10 teams because you're fighting up. I care about what you're doing against teams that are on your level. That's what matters to me. That's why I think I'm more okay with a group of 5 coach than a lot of other people. Because if you're a group of 5 coach, but you're putting belt to ass on other group of 5 schools, I care about that. And low-level P4 schools, I care about that. I don't care what you're doing against Georgia if you're at, Middle Tennessee State. I don't care. You're at a severe talent disadvantage. You should be getting destroyed. So that's why I hate the what's his record versus top 10, what's his record versus top 25, if they don't have that roster. If they don't have that caliber roster, they should lose those games. Drink went 6-7 twice at Missouri. That's a great point. What did he do after that? He gave up play calling and then went 27-6, now 27-7 since then. Drink did what Billy Napier didn't have the humility to do, and it kept his job and saved his job. And that's very important to me. I think having a coach that's willing to go, hey, this isn't working, I'm going to go. I'm going to punt. I think that matters a lot. Who was it? Don Comas said, did we discuss Jeff Traylor from UTSA? My apologies. We didn't. He is on my list of coaches that I expected to get suggested at some point. Kind of surprised that it didn't happen earlier, but I think I'm good. I think I'm good on Jeff Traylor. I think he does a great job getting athletes. I think he does a great job of, I feel like Jeff Traylor is better at getting athletes and developing some athletes than he is at actually winning those games consistently, if that makes sense. And maybe that's a resource thing, right? Like, maybe that's just they don't have the resources at UTSA, but he said 2 10-win seasons. Last year, they were, 500 with the bowl win. This year, they suck. Maybe it's resources, but they do have athletes that they get pretty consistently there, and Jeff Traylor has done a good job there. But I really, I don't know. I also think he's someone that, one, might be considered for Arkansas if they don't keep Petrino, depending on how that goes. Might be a guy that even considers, depending on how the rest of this year goes at UTSA, might be a guy that considers Arkansas in a non-head coaching role. If Texas does open up, like people are reporting, which I don't really buy, but people saying, hey, Sark is putting out feelers for the NFL, which wouldn't shock me, but I don't think it's going to happen. Then maybe Jeff Traylor looks for a smaller job there. Rude Wayne said, give it up. Y'all are not getting Kiffin. He's headed to Baton Rouge. First off, your mother. Secondly, no one here was talking about Lane Kiffin. You just came in and decided to be the loser that you are. Your family hates you. What about Golden of USF? I'm assuming you mean Golesh. I would love Alex Golesh if you're going the G5 route. If you're going the G5 route, I think Alex Golesh is the best candidate for it. Unproven, complete psycho, 7-1 right now. Just beat who many people talk about as the G5, as the G5 darling in Ryan Silverfield. Just beat him. High octane offense, 2 top 25 wins this year. And the loss came against Miami, who they never stood a chance against. They didn't. They never stood a chance against Miami. That wasn't happening. And so that was never actually. Yeah, wait, did they? No, they lost to Memphis. They were winning so much of that game. That's a good point. Winning so much of that game. And I thought they were going to put Bell to ass, really. But Alex Golesh is a name that I really like. I do. I think he's a psycho. I think he wins a lot of football games. He's gotten USF to invest in the roster more than anyone else. I think Memphis is the highest or the most invested G5 roster right now, highest paid G5 roster right now. But USF's up there now, and a big part of that is because of Alex Golesh. And so, yeah, I like Alex Golesh as a fit. If you're going the G5 route, he's my top candidate there. Yeah, so that's where I stand there. I don't know what he would do as defensive coordinator. I think that would matter a lot. But yeah, we'll see about that one. This is why I want Lane out. Teams would hate to see it and scared to death. Yeah, honestly, like at this point, I want Lane to come to Florida, not even for the benefit of having him in Florida, but just to rub it in everyone's faces that are like, it's not happening. It's not happening. It's not happening. I would just love it just to tell you all to shut your damn mouths and that you don't know a damn thing that you're talking about. But it's fun to be combative for no reason, right? I enjoy that. Thanks for making Locked On Gators. We went an hour. I said we were going to do 40 minutes. Sheesh. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free, wherever in the podcast and on YouTube. We will be back tomorrow, talking probably more about this coaching search. I am Brandon Olsen. Find all my written work about the Florida Gators with swampsignal.substack.com, and I'll see you all next time.